Hello, English learners. Welcome to another episode of 6-Minute English. Today, we are going to learn about the correct use of in, on, and at for physical spaces. We won't explain boring rules or complex structures here. With a friendly chat and practical examples, you will learn everything you need in just 6 minutes. So stay with us. Hi, Chris.
Hey, Michelle. I am ready to dive into this. Prepositions of place can be tricky because we often translate them directly from our native language, which leads to mistakes.
That is so true. Before we start with the logic, I want to give the audience a challenge.
Oh, I like that. What is the scenario?
Imagine you're calling your boss. You're at the hospital, but you're only there to pick up a document. Do you say, I'm in the hospital, or I'm at the hospital?
That's a great question. Listeners, think about your answer.
We will explain the crisis shift and give you the correct answer at the end of the show, so stay tuned.
Let's jump into our first point, the meeting point, or the at logic.
People often say, I'm in the bus stop. Why does that sound so strange to you, Chris?
Well, if you say in, I imagine you are physically inside the structure, maybe hiding in the advertisement box.
That would be very uncomfortable.
Exactly. We use at when we treat a location like a single dot on a map. You aren't thinking about walls or the roof.
So it's just a coordinate.
Precisely. For example, I'm at the entrance. You're telling me where to find you, not describing the building.
I see. What about a cafe? If I'm sitting outside on the terrace, do I still say at?
Yes. I'll meet you at the cafe. Works whether you're inside, outside, or standing by the door.
Because the cafe is just the meeting spot.
Exactly, Michelle. You're giving me a point of reference.
Now, what happens when we move from a dot to a box?
That brings us to in, our container preposition.
We use in when we're surrounded by boundaries, right?
Right. Think of it as being inside a 3D space. I'm in the car is a perfect example.
Because I'm inside the vehicle with the doors closed.
Exactly. If you told me I left my keys at the car, I would look on the ground outside the door.
Oh, so at the car means near the car.
Yes, if the keys are inside, they're in the car. If they're nearby, they're at the car.
That's a huge difference for someone looking for their keys.
It really is. Think about the kitchen. The milk is in the fridge.
Because the fridge is a physical container.
Correct. If you said the milk is at the fridge, it would sound like it's just sitting on the floor next to it.
My floor would be very cold.
And very messy.
Okay, so at is a dot and in is a box. What about the third one?
That's on. I like to categorize this as the surface and the ride.
Let's start with surfaces. My phone is on the table.
Correct. It's sitting on top of that flat area.
What about floors in a building?
This is a classic mistake. Students often say, I'm in the second floor.
And why is that wrong?
Because in the floor sounds like you're trapped inside the concrete in the wood.
That sounds like a horror movie.
It does. You're on the floor because it's a surface you stand on.
That makes sense. Now explain the ride.
This is for big public transportation. If you can stand up and walk around inside it, use on.
So I'm on the bus or I'm on the train.
Exactly. Even though you're physically inside, we treat them as platforms.
Does that apply to planes and ships too?
Yes, on a plane and on a ship.
But for a car, we go back to in.
Well, yes, because you can't walk around in a car. It's a small container.
That's a very clear distinction, Chris.
Let's try a wildcard example. What about digital spaces?
Oh, that's interesting. Where do we put a website?
We treat the screen like a surface, so you're on a website or on the internet.
But what if I'm talking about a specific file?
Then it's in a folder, because the folder acts like a digital container.
I love how the logic stays the same even for technology.
It's very consistent once you see the pattern.
Okay, Chris, let's go back to our hospital challenge from the beginning.
The crisis shift.
Exactly. I asked, "You're picking up a document at the hospital. What do you say?"
The correct answer is I'm at the hospital.
Why?
Because you're just at that location. You're a visitor or someone doing an errand.
And if I say I'm in the hospital,
Well, your boss might panic.
why would he panic?
Because in the hospital usually means you're a patient.
Oh, like I'm in a bed wearing a gown and staying overnight.
Exactly. In implies you're contained within the institution's care.
Wow, one preposition can change a visit into an emergency.
It really can. That's why choosing the right vibe is more important than the size of the building.
So don't worry about how big the place is, just think dot, box, or surface.
Precisely. At is the coordinate, in is the enclosure, and on is the surface or the big ride.
I think I finally have it clear.
Are you usually checking these words in your head before you speak, Michelle?
Sometimes, but this logic makes it much faster.
That's the goal. We want the language to feel natural, not like a math equation.
Definitely. Do you have any final advice for our listeners?
Well, don't be afraid of making mistakes. Even if you say in instead of at, people will usually understand you.
But saying it correctly gives you that extra bit of confidence.
Exactly. It makes you sound more like a native speaker.
And it keeps your boss from worrying about your health.
Very true.
Now you know how to use in, on, and at correctly, and you did it in just 6 minutes. If you want to keep improving your English, we leave you this link so you can learn how to use do versus make correctly.
See you next time.
Bye.